Well, good morning and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me. I do know a few faces, I know a few people. It's good to see you again. I have delivered this training before. I've changed it a little bit. Some of you may have been at the other sessions. I can't quite remember now. So the odd thing might seem the same. I've condensed it a little bit because this is a shorter session. Bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. I guess I'm just a little bit worried about time and I really don't want to rush. Can everybody see the screen, the PowerPoint?
Yes.
And I now can't see you, so forgive me if I'm not picking up on any of your facial expressions, but shout out, please. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about time. I don't want to cram, I don't want to rush. So if everybody's okay, if things get missed out, I think that might be preferable. Just sort of quality over quantity. And I do hope that everybody gets something out of today. I don't know exactly what people want. See this, the one slide there, okay? Can everybody see that slide okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant. These were the objectives, so I'm hoping this is kind of what you were looking for. Just to understand a little bit more emotional well-being in migrant groups in Kirklees. Just a little bit at the start about our own well-being, which I think it's all wrapped up in it really. So to understand the emotional health of migrant groups, understand about Solace. I'm just beginning to kind of get the message out a little bit more about Solace and what we do. So a bit more about that. And maybe that's the section I might condense a little bit. And then I think number 4 might be important for you to feel that you can walk away today with a few strategies for communication or calming people through your work. I did come up with a program, but I'm going to suggest to you maybe we won't take a break. Shall we just see where we are? I sort of planned in a 5-minute break, 11:15. I'll keep my eye on the time because it's relatively short session, isn't it? We're due to finish at 12. So it's breaking up into you, self-care, context, trauma, migrant groups, maybe a break, Solace services and you, strategies for your work. I'd like to leave questions at the end. So yeah, just sort of starting with yourself. I hope you all pay attention to your own well-being. It's very important. I hope you find yourself space certain times of the day just to take a breath. I wonder if you can do that now. I wonder if you can just be here, just trying to be here with this training with me. Maybe taking a couple of breaths into your tummy, pausing, and some long out breaths. Noticing any tension in your body and just releasing. The project I'm working on, funded by West Yorkshire and Harrogate Healthcare Partnership, have put a lot of onus actually onto us, frontline workers, self-care, that we should be listened to, heard, supported. And I'm very happy to be able to offer that kind of support to people like yourselves. Mentoring training, phone calls, feel free. I'm pretty good at responding to emails. So just a briefish thought exercise. When did you last feel stressed? What did you do? How did you calm down? Try and think of something specific, not like general, not like, oh, I'm stressed all the time kind of thing, but just try and think of something specific. How did you know you were stressed? And what did you do? Did you come through it? Just Just a brief word on self-care, really. Just look after yourselves. Notice the rhythm of life, daily routines. Notice when your low points are. Create time for yourself, whatever that might mean. Just time out, quality time with others. Look after yourself in terms of eating, exercise, your own limits, any activities that you find nurturing, find time for that. Have boundaries with friends and family, what you can and can't do. And I hope maybe after today, I'll get you to think a little bit more about stress management. You know, when that pressure cooker inside us is building up, strategies of dealing with that. There are lots of things you can do. I'm sure you've thought or even do some of these things to reduce stress. I'm just beginning to find the benefits of yoga now. The last one, ecotherapy, a lot has been written about that now and known the benefits of just being outside in nature. And I think there is a bit of a hidden agenda here. I think when we're working with distressed people, the first thing we need to be is calm ourselves, to feel grounded, to feel steady, to be able to breathe. So I think it is important for our work. And I think if you've got kind of peer support in your organisation and you can offload to each other, that's very important as well. People generally should respond positively if you stay calm. So we're going to think now about probably one of the most important skills. I'm sure you thought about it and I'm sure you do it. I think the most important thing you can do is to have empathy. So, another just quick thought exercise. Can you think of 5 things that you would feel living, trying to settle, being in a new country? And I guess as you do that, you're kind of empathizing, you're putting yourself in the place of the people we work with. Can everyone see the video clip? Can we see the video clip?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear it? Yeah.
So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Meditation 2.
Everyone see the PowerPoint again?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I hope that gives you an idea of empathy, being alongside somebody. Little tip there. It's about sort of curiosity, thinking about if that were me, sort of thinking as if that's me. And there's a little bit of self-protection there. So it's not you, it's not happening to you. So you're not going through the trauma. But I wonder if that were me. That's quite a good tip there. Going a little bit deeper into something, tell me about it, explain. Can you describe that? Empathizing. I mean, my experience, for what it's worth, is people cope really well. People cope with the challenges of being in a different country. So I try and stay open and curious, not thinking what the struggles might be, to their race, to their culture and custom, not have preconceived ideas of the problems. Always aware of my own race and ethnic heritage. I'm part of what's going on. And how I'm experienced by the client. Who am I to them? White, UK, authority. A lot of being in the media about Black Lives Matters and how we need to become more aware of these things, white privilege, and how interactions when we talk to people are taking place in a white space with white procedures and culture. And I'll return to this bottom one, but always be mindful that there's a lot of stigma, particularly in some cultures, about mental illness, fear, shame, dishonor. So who knows what people have gone through when they come to us, variety of stressful experiences and living with the consequences. So I think at Solace, we're very aware and treading a balance between what's gone on before, pre-migration trauma, which can in some cases be PTSD, post-traumatic stress, issues of shame, loss and insecurity, but also what's happening now, what's going on, what's post-migration stresses. And it's it's a mixture of both, I think, in some cases. In my research, these are a lot of the post-migration issues. I'll just let you read that rather than read them all out to you. Some you may recognize. And whilst getting leave to remain is a great relief for many people, some of the same issues continue after or new ones. And a lot of it is, I use this word a lot, not feeling safe. And that can be because of what's happened and the body is stuck in this kind of danger mode where you're reliving danger constantly. or some of it is just simply not feeling safe in a new environment, different country, not feeling safe because you may be deported, being very confused. And these are some of the big kind of emotional problems we come across: bereavement, loss, grief, discrimination, shame, obviously language barriers, and that can lead to a frustration and a need to be heard. Powerlessness is a big one. And internal feelings of falling apart, you know, can I cope? Can I keep it together? Another quick thought exercise: what are your fears, difficulties of, or experiences of working with traumatized people? And if you can sort of think, and might return to that a little bit later when I look at your strategies. So I've said to you, I kind of start from a point of view of openness. I don't know about this person in front of me. I also think it's very important I start from the idea that things can be healed, that the body is the greatest, kind of most amazing thing. I still can't get over the human body. I just think it's amazing. And I share that with clients. I think the natural ability to have resilience, to heal, to be okay is phenomenal. And it's quite important to hold that, I think, when people are falling apart. People, this is everybody, we've all got little coping parts of ourselves that can be strengthened, protector or coping parts. And one of the reasons I got you to think of, you know, when were you last stressed? What did you do? We kind of were doing that all the time. Sometimes we need a bit of help, but we are managing stress. Just need to sort of tune in and see how we're doing it, see if we can do it a bit better. And a lot, I guess, as well, is now being known about resilience, and resilience is just so important, and you can't teach it, apparently. People have to develop their own resilience. It's what works for that person in different situations that enables them to learn and grow and adapt. But it's overcoming difficulty, it's learning from that. And it will be different for different people. But that's encouraging, isn't it? 2/3 of people cope with difficult life events. I mean, that means 1/3 of people maybe don't and need help, but 2/3 do cope. Just something about stress and trauma, because I think they need separating a wee bit. And somebody once told me this thing that's really good to think. Stress is kind of one thing after another, you know, the annoying everyday one thing after another things, just demands, very stressful. Trauma is, well, the Greek word is wound. It's something where you actually felt powerless. It's an experience. You're undoubtedly scared and there was nothing you could do. A kind of feeling of trapped, scared and powerless. And trauma can leave a mark, hence wound. It's related to the stress response, but it kind of goes deeper and it's more wounding. And then it becomes reliving the same thing, not those everyday, one thing after another, but the same thing over and over. So what's the stress response? I'm sure you know this. I mean, it's the fight flight, you know, it's kind of well known how our body responds when we start feeling stressed. And it happens in our endocrine and nervous system. So the fight flight, yeah, a lot of energy, a lot of adrenaline. We prepare to either fight or run away. Sometimes called the human smoke detector. And this smoke detector is right in the middle of our animal brain here in the amygdala. And everything's going on in the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is all go. Parasympathetic, if I've got it the right way round, is slowing down. Yeah. Parasympathetic is the brakes, when we calm, when we breathe, when we start recovering. There's something else that happens. So, some people might know this, some people not, which is a kind of freeze. It's like animal in headlights. And it can happen to us too. I guess it links back to animals in the wild, predators chasing them. This thing happens. I think we've got time for the clip. I'll just show you what happens. No, it's not letting me do it. Oh, maybe this is it. Yeah. Might just have to stop sharing.
This tactic is of little use, especially the opossum can't run fast enough to hide very far away.
Assuming you can all see the video clip. Yeah.
Just as the second coyote senses that a meal is at hand, her mate appears to have lost his appetite. Most predators need the stimulation of resistance to incite them to kill, and the act of killing to induce them to eat. An inert body inspires little interest. But the possum is still breathing, and in fact, it's only playing dead, playing possum. Biding time until the threat of danger is past. It's not just consciously putting on a good act, however. It actually goes into a state similar to shock, a condition known as thanatosis. The coyotes are fooled into searching for livelier prey. While gradually, as it senses that the coast is clear, the opossum comes out of its trance and goes about its steady, deliberate way.
So it's like a flooding, it's like an overload. Just remembered as I was talking then, a client who came to me once and said that they literally couldn't move for 3 days. They were just sort of sitting. And that inevitably that must be what had happened to them, this kind of flooding, freezing. And it happens after extreme stress or trauma, like a computer crash. We become frozen, immobilized. So stress is normal. We all feel it. It's ongoing. And the ways to deal with it are normal and functional. But prolonged stress or exposure to severe traumatic events can be harmful. And work needs to be done. Reducing stress, resetting bodily processes. So some of the symptoms here of sympathetic nervous system, hyperarousal, when you may be feeling like this all the time, too much stress. I'll just let you read that. You can see it can start to have physiological effects on your body. And we call that hyperarousal. That can kind of lead to some behavioral symptoms, behaviors. In the long term, it can have, more dangerous effects, mental health problems. And a lot of clients are showing some of these longer term effects of prolonged stress. So stress is normal. It's just about demands, and it's how our body copes with that. Perfectly normal, but something you have to keep your eye on. May need addressing if they continue. Trauma, a bit deeper, could be a single one-off event, just one event, could be traumatic. Could involve harm deliberately inflicted by other people. So there could be a power imbalance there. Exacerbated when it's repeated, prolonged, cumulative, inescapable. And I'm sure you all kind of heard of early relationship trauma. A lot now is known about that and the sort of brain of children who've been traumatized early on. It's very different. We can get it. Professionals working with traumatized people can get it vicariously, and definitely need help when that happens. PTSD, I'm sure you've all heard of. Get the idea again of when something was threatening physically, your life, your body, or seeing it, witnessing it, or actually learning about that to a loved one can also be traumatic. Generally linked to loss of control. There was nothing I could do. I was trapped. Doesn't show at first necessarily, PTSD. It can come on. If it stops you living a normal life, it becomes a disorder. Some symptoms of PTSD, some of which I've mentioned earlier. Shame about what's happened. Oddly, not necessarily being able to remember, because the memories from trauma don't necessarily get stored in the same way as normal memories. And this is what we are often working with, I think, the kind of re-experiencing aspects of trauma. So intrusive images, fragmented, definitely nightmares, living like it's still happening, emotional distress that seems stuck, watchfulness, always kind of that feeling of being on guard. And then the physical symptoms, high blood pressure, fast heart rate. I'm just going to show you something quickly. So this is the best demonstration I've ever seen of what happens when something's stressful. Can you see my fists?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of when something is really traumatic and stressful, something happens in our lower internal brain, limbic system or animal brain, that causes our thinking bit here, top of our brain, to almost switch off. It gets disconnected. So we're not necessarily making sense of what's happening. We're just reacting, and all the reaction is going on in our body. That's often why there are no memories, hasn't been connected to other processes in the brain. Just let you have a little look at that. More about trauma, what happens. That's a common one I find: headaches, chronic pain, head pain in clients, sleep problems. So I'm just going to check in with you. I'm hoping that wasn't too rushed. I'm hoping you got a sense of what stress is and how actually it's normal. Hoping you've got a sense of what trauma is and the consequences, and beginning to get a sense of the issues affecting this client group. So can I sort of invite you to raise anything at this point that you want to?
Hi Anthea, it's Maeve.
Yeah. Hi Maeve.
Hi, yeah, I just put in the chat that this is the problem for our client group because they are asked through the Home Office sign of process to relive and retell their trauma as a test of their credibility. And we know of clients for whom, when they get to that point in their story, the point of trauma, different things happen to different people because of how you described the effects of trauma. Some of them can't recall, so the Home Office then queries their credibility. Some of them, somebody that we know did collapse, well, froze or collapsed, but basically just couldn't breathe. And so the interview had to sort of be called to a halt. And so it's the eternal dilemma for an asylum seeker, is how to safely coexist with their trauma so that they can retell it to ensure their own safety.
Yeah. I'll just add a couple of things to that. My colleague Anne is doing a lot of research and hoping to get more known about how you just can't remember, and you can't remember in a chronological order. And that shouldn't be taken to add credibility to the case. You know, more courts or whatever need to understand about how people can't remember and can't remember accurately. And so need a different way and need support in retelling their story. And that needs to be taken into account. And yeah, we get a lot of clients who've been referred because they've been through the procedure, you know, they've told their story and it's been incredibly destabilizing for them. But can I invite anybody else to add to that? Or something different?
I mean, some of the women that we work with as well, and Nikki and Zanbu, Kani and Saidil, agree that a lot of it, just the headaches, you know, you say about the headaches and the body pain as well, experiencing with the women coming in. So yeah, we see a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
But they don't understand why that's happening, where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And not understanding the link.
And I'm going to pick that up when I talk about solace and how a little bit of psychoeducation is so powerful. How, you know, once you tell people these headaches are understandable because of what you've gone through, or, you know, what's happening in your body, it's normal. And people get great relief about that kind of psychoeducation. And I think some people kind of would find it easier to go to the GP with physical symptoms rather than say, you know, to talk about their story, what's happened, or talk about don't want to get labeled as having a mental illness if they're distressed or falling apart. So I think people find it easier to talk about physical symptoms as well.
Anthea, what we do in our group is, because we see a lot of women with headaches and they've got the physiological symptoms, they don't seem to put them two together to say, I've been through an experience.
It's breaking.
Yeah, breaking up a bit, Sadia.
Sorry.
Your voice is breaking.
Is my voice breaking?
Try again, Sadia.
What I was saying was a lot of our women don't associate what's happening in their bodies to what has happened to them or the experiences that they've been through. So in our sessions, we've tried calming techniques so they're more in touch with their bodies and what they're feeling, and noticing what's going on inside them, and being able to put a name to it to say, today I'm feeling muscular pain, or what can I do about it, just so that they're addressing those symptoms themselves with themselves.
Brilliant. Yeah, we do a lot of work like that, somatic work. Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go forward. So I'm just going to ask you, do you want a 5-minute break, or because I had built it in, or
Not for me.
should we keep going?
No,
Are we all right?
fine.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let me just talk a little bit about Solace. Some of you may know lots of this already. I'm not going to go into too much detail, and I do want to leave time for more chat and more strategies. And you can have a look at our website. How do we get referrals? Through GP, particularly through the White House, organisations like DASH and REACH. What do we prioritise? A bit like you were describing there, safe trauma practice, building in lots of safety, psychoeducation, talking about what's happening in the body, it's normal. Grounding stress management, building internal coping resources and external coping resources. And something that I might just go through briefly called trauma processing, like EMDR, emotional freedom technique. Just trying to begin to target a little bit more the trauma and push it along a bit, process it a bit, if clients are ready. I like to think of it as a holistic kind of care approach rather than just pure psychotherapy. And it's about creating safety, thinking about the pre-migration trauma, the PTSD, creating resources, helping adapt to life, coping with the loss of home and other losses, connecting, really. I think sometimes just to try and connect people up more is just as important. And like yourselves, I'm sure you've been doing a lot of telephone work, Zoom calls, Zoom stress management sessions. Yeah, that was just how we've gone online, sorry. But yeah, we do, as you can see, support for other professionals. We've got something called a child and family welfare service as well, working with resettlement families in schools and with families. And this is just kind of reproducing that a little bit, but in a bit more detail. It's a Farsi speaking psychotherapist we have at the White House Centre. There's myself now. I've built up my work in Kirklees. That's the Child and Family Wellbeing Service, mainly Syrians. We also run a project with Connecting Opportunities. Not quite sure if that links to you, Ismail. Further information on that. So just briefly, what is safe trauma work? It's trying to create safe feelings in the client. And I don't know if this would surprise anybody. It's just quite often not talking about the trauma, not talking about what's happened. I've worked with so many clients now that you don't even get onto what's happened because it's not been appropriate, but they feel stronger and better and able to cope. I'd quite like you to be able today to know what the symptoms of hyperarousal would look like and hypoarousal. And you may already know that. There's something we're trying to work with here. I hope that's not too technical, but it's this little thing in the middle. we're trying to work with people in a calm state, which is what we call a window of tolerance. I guess where, you know, you're breathing, you feel calm, thoughts are flowing, there's no hyperarousal, which is up here. So, you know, that would be crying, agitated body, red face. So we're bringing everything down to here. Hypoarousal would be, you know, sometimes people look like falling asleep or they're very pale, and you don't really want people here because you can have people passing out in a hypoaroused state. How do we create safety? What makes you feel safe? When did you last feel safe? When can you create that safe feeling in yourself? And a lot, I think, is to do with the relationship you create. Can create that kind of feeling, I'm safe with this person. And it reminds me of, I've been working with somebody and I'm still not there, you know, with this person. And I've seen her quite a few times now, and I know there's not that kind of base there yet. So how do we do that? We need to be reliable, consistent, do what we say, predictable. When the real world starts up again, we need to try and keep the same place where we meet, the same time, all the boundaries. Creating that safe space physically, but also it's kind of emotional, isn't it? Feeling safe. This was the best bit of training I ever did on trauma, and it was about putting the brakes on. Because I'm English and I'm too polite, and I was brought up, you can't interrupt people. And I've massively had to get over that in myself. You have to stop people. And a bit linking to what Maeve is saying, when you open up, when people start telling their story, everything starts falling apart, so in their body and everything. And you don't want that. So you need to stop people, and you've got to get over that, you know, a barrier of stopping somebody. You have to stop and just get them away from the subject, particularly if they're, you know, just crying all the time. Although, you know, don't get me wrong, people need to know that tears are okay. People need to know that crying is, you know, there's no stigma about it. But it's if it gets too much, people are speaking quickly, red in the face, becoming aggressive. Or like I say, the opposite can be as bad, sleepy, pale. So we need to stop and do something and get back into that window of tolerance that I think of as a green, kind of calm place. I don't know if even pressure cookers exist anymore, but I grew up with my mum and dad cooking in a pressure cooker, and the steam builds up very quickly, and then the little thing at the top releases it. And I guess we're a bit like that, the human trauma system. Things build up. So we're always trying to look for ways to stop that pressure building up in the system. And from what we do and what we say, this is the skill, I suppose, is not to inflame it, which I'll return to. This can be useful. I do it a little bit. Try and create with somebody a nice place on a beach or in nature. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Sometimes I find if I create a place that people know, that can be upsetting because it might be somewhere where they used to go. They can't go now, but it's got potential, that. And I can remember some people who like that. Somewhere where you can feel safe, go to. This is what somebody was talking about earlier, I think, a little bit. And this is like the easiest thing you can do. It's so easy. If you can just get people working with their senses a little bit, what do you see? You know, you're focusing a bit of the brain that's very calming and very focusing. So you're stopping all the kind of alarm system going off. What can you hear? Any distant noises? If you've got water, you know, tasting the water, especially with a bit of lemon in it. Touch the sides of your chair. Touch your feet on the ground. What, you know, how does that feel? Touch, smell. I mean, having something nice to smell like lavender. So the more you can engage people in the 5 senses, I think that's a great technique to bringing people back and keeping people calm and present. And it's things actually we can do ourselves to maintain our own equilibrium and calmness. So just some visual images of that taste, sight, smell, vision, hearing. And I don't know if it's kind of appropriate for the work you do, but to build these things into what you do is very useful. So yeah, just a bit more about grounding. It's very useful to give people these skills to recover a little bit from nightmares. You know, you wake up from a nightmare, you can't get over it. But some people quite respond to a little grounding protocol after, just to calm down, bring back to the present. Even this sounds daft, but repeating things. It's Friday morning, it's 11:30. I'm here. There's no apparent danger. Just those things can actually be really good. Anchors are useful. So if people carry an object, you know, if people are spiritual and get comfort from an object, acts like an anchor. Thinking of a comforting person or an animal. Focusing on the body, being comfortable focusing on the body, taste, sensations. It's all about, actually, there's no great mystery to it. It's all about getting people in the present, in the here and now, because flashbacks are just that. You're back and you don't want to be back. So it's all about being present, and kind of linking to what Maeve said a little bit as well. You know, people need, if they're going to be telling the story in an interview, people need to be aware of this and need to, you know, they need to do these things with them to keep them grounded and to stop all this happening. Mentioned this earlier, but psychoeducation is very, very powerful, I think. Once people feel I'm not going crazy, I'm not falling apart, and actually I can control these scary things that are happening in my body. So once you give them a little bit of psychoeducation, like today, like about trauma and the effect it has, it can be very powerful, I find. And then people can start recognizing the symptoms, when they might come on, how to deal with them. And then maybe the panic attacks start getting less. And then start getting a sense of control, feeling a bit more compassionate about themselves. I'll just let you have a little look at that. I guess we're trying to encourage people to develop activities, learning, doing things, being creative. There's an organisation called S2R that are very good, but there's lots of other organisations as well that put on creative things, even during this time online. Trying to build attachments, body work, somatic resources, even if that's walking every day. I sometimes do work on positive memories. That can be quite powerful. Because when you think of a memory, your body reacts. You have the same kind of, so if you're working with somebody to think about when they played football, when they were 11, those feelings come back of how that felt. A little bit more on that, really. Same thing. In small ways, that some things can be useful, like a shower. ecotherapy we've mentioned, being outside. Thinking about employment, education. The ESOL classes are invaluable. Spiritual resources are very powerful too. So I'm just gonna, before I do that, I'm gonna check in. So that was kind of a little bit about Solace. I could go in a bit more detail about the trauma processing, but it might not be that relevant. It's just the more technical things that some of our specialists do. I do something called emotional freedom technique, just working a little bit like acupuncture on meridian points. To yeah, Sadia, you recognise that one?
Yeah, I call it tapping.
Yeah, tapping. Yeah.
So, are you an EMDR therapist, Anthea?
I've done sort of level 1 and 2, but no, not EMDR. Two of my colleagues do EMDR.
Right, okay, that's my long-term thing. So I'm really interested in how trauma works and sits with us and how EMDR can help. So
Yeah.
Supervisor is a therapist, an EMDR therapist, and
Yeah.
she's teaching me lots of different techniques that can work with that. So yeah, I like that. I like the hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So we're on 11:30. Anybody want to kind of raise anything at this point?
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I understand all the strategies and how they work and all the rest of it, but what markers are there that people would know to look for when they should be referred to you for professional help? Because I don't think, sorry, my husband's banging, but you know, it's not up to the face-to-face people in some situations. I think we need to know when it's appropriate to refer.
Yeah. And I'm just going to have a think about that, because that sounds like a big question, and I feel like I want to get it right. But I'll come back to that, Liz. Does anybody have any views on that, when to refer to us?
I think at the moment, with the limitations we have and the restrictions, it's very difficult to do quite a number of those things suggested, unless you bend the rules.
What do you mean, Dina? Sorry.
Pardon?
What do you mean, Dina?
When it comes to referring people, because we do not see people.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to know how deep they have already gone down the spiral. And the phone is a wonderful thing, but it's very limiting in another way. I work, I work, I see, whatever the word is, quite a lot of men. And men and women experience all these things in such different ways, and they look at it from different angles. And I find it so hard, and my heart sometimes kind of bleeds, because there are people in the asylum and early refugee processes who so desperately need help, or at least grab rails to hold on to. They are there, but they can't access them.
Yeah. I'm thinking lots of thoughts, and I can't kind of get them all in a coherent order, but I'm thinking your instincts will be pretty good. I've done a little bit of work with an English class, and I remember the teacher saying to me, you know, when she notices a student hasn't been for a bit, or she's noticed her student changes in them, that might be something, mightn't it, when you see changes in somebody. But what you're saying, Dina, as well, is, well, what about if we don't see somebody? That's very hard not to physically see someone. So you're working then for other cues, aren't you? What they're telling you. Are they telling you something different? Or is this a new person? You know, what do you need to pick up on? What are they telling? Yeah.
The regular contact is absent at present.
Yeah.
It's so hard to see and to help actually, or offer them a hand for them to grab and then move on. That we are signposts like Dash and the Reach project. You know, because of the language, there's so much that comes together in this, because there's a language barrier. So if somebody is really in a difficult emotional situation, they may talk to another person from the home country.
Yeah.
And all we then need is someone who is able to express in the English language, unless there is an interpreter, like you just mentioned, the Farsi speaking one.
Yeah.
But then it's again someone from the home country, and then the matter of trust comes again.
That can be an issue.
Complicated.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Sorry, yeah. I think as Dinah said about the interpretation, sometimes bringing another interpreter, you know, during that translation, the feeling is lost there in between. So, I mean, they can't translate that feeling. They are just translating words, which is not enough. Yeah.
There are challenges working with interpreters like that. Yeah. And you're kind of working with the interpreter to see that they're being as accurate as they can to the dialogue and the feelings. Yeah,
exactly. Although I believe that if they are from the same culture background, they are understanding each other more rather than from different places. So in a way it's good, and in a way it's really bad translation.
Yeah. I'm gonna, go on, Sadia.
I'm currently working with an Arabic client and I don't speak Arabic, so we have an interpreter and we're doing telephone counselling. And I found it was really important to build a relationship with the interpreter as the client, so we were all on the same page. And we can now laugh and joke, but you know, talk quite normal between ourselves, all three of us, because we built that three-way relationship.
Yeah,
we're understanding each other, and I thought that was really important. I don't know how others have worked with interpreters, but I found it quite useful.
Yeah. I'm going to take, Dina, I'm going to take your question away because I think it's so important. And I'm going to, if you don't mind, if I email everybody with some maybe guidance, come up with a sort of guidance sheet, what to look for and when to refer, because I really want to give that credit. Yeah, so I'm just going to skip through this a little bit now then. You've got an idea, it's the technical stuff, it's the attempt to be a bit more direct in processing the trauma. So I think we can kind of move on to strategies now. And looking at the clock, I'm not going to do the breakout rooms because we haven't got time. So just briefly, what skills have you developed and what skills do you need? If you could think about those two things for me. And is there anything specific before I come on to talking through my tips? Is there anything specific that you think you need?
I think listening skill is really important here because as you said during in the strategy, that sometimes you need to stop the client that they are telling their story, But I think listening is really important, and we need to wait until they stop from telling their story, because sometimes the gap while they are silent, they remember something else they are talking about. They bring it up to for example, for you to how can I say? I don't know. Anyway, but it's really important to have that listening skill, because it might be losing too many things if you stopping them from talking, or if you are not properly listening, properly understand the story. So yeah, that's what I believe.
Okay, I'm going to integrate that one in. Anything else specifically?
This Maeve, yeah, I think maybe just a shared vocabulary across our workers, so that we understand terminology, things like disassociation, so that without obviously getting too technical or going beyond our reach, just a basic understanding of those terms, so that when they're used, because in the legal casework, some of that could be really important and useful for us to be aware of.
Yeah, almost like a glossary of.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's difficult in terms of our casework is that we're so overstretched and time limited, that in an appointment with a client, which doesn't have a time limit on it, but it kind of, it does and it doesn't. You know, we allow an hour, but sometimes in that appointment, in quite a rushed way, we will need to ascertain certain facts about the client in relation to their asylum claim, that kind of is asking them quite brutal things in a not particularly, you know, it's not an environment that's sort of therapeutically friendly. It's like, we need some facts from you, you know, what was your trauma? And so we just need to find a way that within those confines that we understand more, so that we can do that as kindly and carefully as we can.
Being able to sort of show that you're compassion, but you actually, but at this point in time, we just need to know your story.
And it's maybe making, sorry Dina, it's maybe making a choice if we do identify what might be hyper, what was it, hyper?
Yeah, hyper and hypo.
Yeah, if we get better at identifying if we're pushing someone into a dangerous place, then maybe we can make the assessment that we don't actually need to ask that question there and then. I just think we need more education about it ourselves.
And the short response to that is, you've got to watch. You got to watch the person, the color of their face, their body movements, agitation.
Sometimes it's on the phone as well.
Yeah, that's harder, I know too. I've got a little bit better at that since lockdown, detecting emotion changes, but it's hard, But I think that's our only way, is to try. Therapy speak, it's about tuning. You're tuning in to somebody. So that's where your own calmness comes in. If you're calm, you'll be able to quicker pick up on somebody else's agitation.
And also, Anthea and everybody else, I would like to add that when you work in an organization that is kind of general and not specialist, but we need to learn to see when we have reached a point with the prospective client whereby we cannot help them, and that because, you know, when you just have open doors for someone for a cup of coffee or tea and some friendship, then what you mentioned earlier about boundaries, we must not fall in the pit of trying to do a specially trained person's job.
Absolutely, and I'm going to cover that. It's so important to not be out of your comfort zone or your specialism, or definitely. So I'm just going to do the last bit now, which is my kind of tips, I suppose. So it's about calming, a little bit like I've just been saying, your own calmness. You need to be okay. So just, and being tuned. So kind of using your instinct a little bit. You probably instinctively know that there's a word that would kind of fuel somebody, make them angry. And maybe some of that comes up with experience. So if you get time, try and develop that base relationship, that positive, trusting relationship, and it can take time. Boundaries, as Dina's sort of getting at a little bit, but these boundaries in terms of regular time when you see somebody, and not being late, but calling when you say, place when we're back to normal. But sometimes with a client on the phone, I do ask them, where are you? You know, are you away from people? Are you comfortable? Sometimes they're in their bedroom. So you can try and work a little bit with where they are, and try and get them to go to the same place. Yeah, you're going to have to stop people. And I'm taking on board what you're saying, Maeve, and I'm going to try and work with that. How do you then show compassion? Maybe in your facial expression. Maybe I could come up with a phrase that you could use with people to show, you know, you do care about their story. But yeah, I'll think about that. Can you build in breaks? I guess not if you're under time pressure, but can you just for 2 minutes pause? Can you have a drink of water and just do some breathing? Do a little bit of grounding with the clients. People generally don't mind. People, you know, when it feels nice, people like it. And if you're going to be working with people's stories, I do suggest you would do that anyway, and tell them before, this might be upsetting. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take breaks, and we're going to just use something called grounding, our 5 senses, just to keep having little breaks and just to keep, you know, keep grounded and keep calm. And just say to them, we know this is useful. We know it helps people. Hyper, yeah, hyper is the agitated one. Hypo is the drowsy one. When somebody's hyper aroused, you must stop them. I know somebody was saying, well, you've got to give them space. You've got to let them speak. Actually, the way I was trained, you haven't. Stop them. Stop. Show compassion. Somehow, you know, we're human beings. We know how to show compassion. We do it every day with our friends and family. It comes out in our face, our body language. We don't touch, do we? So we don't often have that sort of touch, but I think we can show it in our body language, leaning forward. You do care, and those kind of feelings will come across, I think, to the client. Bring them back into that window. Do the grounding with them. It's a kind of parallel. It's what mothers and babies do. They mirror their children. Do that mirroring. Do it with them, and that's showing compassion. That's showing you care for them because you want them to be calm and safe. Do the belly breathing. Slightly longer out of breath. Pause in the middle. Get them to fill their tummy up as they breathe in. Long out breath. Breathe with them. Glass of lemon water. Get them to touch. Feel their feet on the floor. Or even just a bit of progressive muscle relaxation. Stretch their arms out, clench their fists, relax. I've only ever had one hyper-aroused person once, but I guess I just got her to stand up. We went a little walk. I thought she was nodding off. I didn't like it. She wouldn't eat a biscuit. So we had a little walk round. Kind of, I don't know if this is helpful, or you probably already do it, but there's this, I've called it new, N-E-W. Notice what you hear and what you see, you know, and say that I've noticed. Notice you seem to get upset when we spoke of maybe pick an aspect. And notice you seem to get upset when we come to this bit. Empathize, use that sort of empathy skill. And this must be very worrying, living with this level of uncertainty. And this, I think, is how you're beginning to show the compassion. So hoping this is kind of answering your question, Maeve, that you're with them. You're absolutely looking at them. You're with them 100%. You're noticing. You're imagining what it's like. And then I'm just wondering how we can go forward with this. I think you're too upset today. I honestly do. And I want you to be safe and I want you to be well. I think we need to kind of have another go a bit later or another day. So I guess it's about diffusing, dealing with different situations. No one situation is going to be the same, and you're building up your bank of skills. You're using you. You're absolutely using you and all your skills and all your humanity and your technical skills and your organizational skills and knowledge. It's just another little example of new. Notice we're back at the same problem, accessing a GP appointment. I understand this is so frustrating for you because of the language barrier. I just wonder how we can go forward because we're not making progress. Empower the person to try and find solutions themselves. But you see, people need to feel in control. So the more you help them to feel control, because if they've been through trauma, it's that loss of control that's the destabilizing thing. So give them as many choices as possible. I touched on this earlier. Use positive language, avoiding words like mental and illness, feeling well, flourishing. Maybe going back to Dina's question, this is some of the conversation you could have with people. Have you not been feeling so well? Are you not flourishing at the minute? I know there are challenges with using interpreters here. If you are doing, are you not feeling very balanced at the minute or at peace? Have you lost your purpose? Things you used to do. Do you feel useful? You're feeling useful to your family still, you do that. Are you not feeling close to people now? Do you feel like you're shutting down? You're feeling something inside, do you need to feel stronger inside? Hope that kind of touches on some of your things, Dina, about the conversation you can have with people if you're worried. And then a kind of conversation about solace and what we do. Hope you can get a kind of feel of what you'll be able to say about us and encouraging people that it doesn't mean to say they've got to have a course of therapy, but somebody who knows about these things, knows what you're going through, just a conversation. Speaking in a clear, calm voice. I'm sure you will do this, but non-judgmental and not anticipating what the problem might be. Tell me a bit more about that. Be curious, not for your own benefit, not a question just because you're curious for you, but curious in a useful way for what you need to know for the asylum claim or whatever. Empathize. Sometimes you don't know what to say. There aren't words. It's that human skill we have sometimes when somebody's bereaved. You don't know what to say, but you find something like, yeah, that just feels like so much. Feels like such a loss for you. And sometimes sharing what you felt in your body, and sometimes I've said, oh, I felt that like a kick in the stomach. If you feel it's appropriate, what impact is it having on you? Try and be a little bit tuned to your own body. And do kind of have an organizational structure and make sure you're following that for how you can help people what they can share with you. That's touching on a little bit of safeguarding. And I am aware of the time. And I was sort of thinking you probably are on top of this, your own organisational safeguarding procedures, but telling clients what you can keep confidential and what you can't for their own safety. And I'll send you this PowerPoint. There are organisations here that help with safeguarding issues and suicide, honour-based abuse. Signposting. I just actually trimmed that down a bit. I have got a fuller version. Who you can signpost people to, but a lot of you are here today. So I hope I'll talk to you a minute for the last 5 minutes, but I'm hoping you've got something. I know there are always unanswered questions. I hope you can see a kind of positive that people recover, people can be helped. I hope you would have the confidence to stop people, and you can take some of these tips away and think about them and practice them. These were the original objectives. I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to send around just a very short evaluation. It just helps us improve these sessions. Should only take a few minutes. So I'll put a link on this PowerPoint and I'll send it around to you. And I had hoped to leave 10 minutes at the end, but we do have 5 minutes. So please, use this space, ask anything else.
I just want to say thank you, and it was really interesting just to look at the hypo and the hyper. Oh, it's gone out of my head now. Yeah, and just to focus on that when we're working with women as well, and that thing about when you're seeing that someone's actually feeling quite low, and maybe that thing about getting them up and exercising and getting them moving, and actually not being afraid to just say, just stop and let's kind of just ground ourselves. Well, because we do find that when women are talking about their stories that they do quite, get quite upset and tearful, and and to know that it's actually to say, okay, let's just stop there, let's just take a break, let's just ground ourselves, a few exercises, and then maybe come back to it when we're ready. So yeah, that has been useful to kind of have.
Yeah, you need somebody to give you permission to do that, don't you? Because, you feel like, oh, I shouldn't stop someone, it's rude, or, they really need to talk. So you just need someone to give you permission to be able to do that and to know it's in their best interest.
Yeah.
Dina, I am going to think some more about your question, because I just think it's so important, the kind of what to look for and when to refer.
Yeah, and
but I hope I answered it just a little bit.
I've just noticed how very few, only Ismail is there as a male, yet I would imagine the number of people in the Huddersfield area who are asylum seekers or fall in a migrant group, there must be quite a balance between male and female, and only Ismail is here as a male. Surely there must be organizations that seem to have clients, males as clients mainly. I was just thinking, as females, it might be quite a bit easier to talk about what's going on. I think for men in general, they have another hurdle within themselves to overcome.
Absolutely.
And it would be good to maybe have a stronger focus on that part of the migrant group, on that section of the migrant group.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at that because I'm going to be running a group activity, and I'm thinking absolutely to have a male-based group, because I think you're right. I think, yeah, I think that there's a need there to address that.
But all the same, I found it very, very useful this morning. I've made an A4 sheet full of notes, and I look forward to the link that you're going to send us, just to go through everything again. And I am sure that all of us will be able to pick out some things where we either need to step back or where we can be more proactive now with having got this information.
Good.
I'm glad I've joined. Thank you.
Good. And if you ever have any ideas for a little bit of further training, you know, some more, is there anything else you want to go into, like the strategies or whatever? I have some time to do more, you know, some backup training. Well, okay then, I'll end it there. Lovely to meet everybody, and I hope you have a pleasant weekend.
You too.
You too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been really interesting. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.